Hey, this is Pastor Curry, pastor of the Zion Fair Baptist Church, Wilmington's most exciting church, the church that love ya and anything you can do about it. I'm excited today. I'm really excited today. We got two giants that's going to be with us today. The former mayor, Jim Sills, as well as Herman Holloway. I call him Mr. Southbridge. I call Mayor Sills the first in many different areas, from the university level to the public service level. He has really served well, and I'm looking forward to today's show. Why don't you call somebody, tell them Coffee with Curry is on, and let's get after it. And we're back. It is a joy and a privilege for me to have and host for this moment Herman Holloway Jr. It is just a joy. You are Mr. Southbridge. When we talk about Southbridge, we really have to say the Holloways. But in actuality, for the last year, especially the time I've been around, you have really been that history for us, and I'm so grateful to have you here. So we want to spend a little bit of time just talking a little bit about Southbridge. We have a video that we're going to certainly play after this, but let's just talk a little bit about Southbridge and what's going on here.
Pastor Carey, I am pleased and proud to join you here today to do this and to speak in the loving memory of Senator Herman Holloway Sr., who ran these streets as a young boy. I'm sure you're familiar right down the corner where, across from the King Center, the Millie Cannon Park. The Millie Cannon Park used to be a three-story, the only three-story building over here. Had 5 rooms up top. Used to be like I guess a flop house or something, and a big pool room down on the first floor. When my grandfather came here with 9 head of children, as he would say, from Georgia, he bought that property, 1200 B Street. And that's where my father, Herman Holloway Sr., and all the family were raised, my aunts and whatnot. And then on top of that, as he married my mother, Ethel Johnson Holloway, they purchased the house right next door, which was 1202 B Street. And then we later moved around to the house that my sister Marlene Dryden is in now. And Marlene still resides in our family house, which is the home that we were reared in as young children. I remember when Dad bought the house, he lost the key. Lost, and as a result, I'm a youngster. Took me around with the guy we bought the house from. He couldn't find another key, and what we did, they went around to the back, knocked the cellar window out, told me go down there and come up, feel around in the dark, open the door, and come up there and let them in. And from there, that became the Holloway House, 636 Townsend Street.
Oh, wow, that's a great history.
So that was the beginning.
Yes, and you all have done well. Your father being the first African-American to be elected as a senator in the state of Delaware.
Yes.
Help me to understand, how could that happen in a state that was labeled as racist as this state was?
Was, and a question mark at this moment, but where we are. My dad has always dipped and dabbed pretty good into politics. Going back many years ago, the entire city of Wilmington, we had a population of about 127,000 people at that point. We're down to about 70,000 now, before white flight. But it was about 127,000 people living in the city of Wilmington. And 90% of those folks, Pastor Carey, were registered Republicans. The Republicans ran this town as solid as the Democrats have it now. And my dad's first venture, back in, I was 1 year old, born 44, 1945, Dad ran for city council against city councilman Mr. Dugan, who had the grocery store right up across from Sepia Cleaners. And that's an interesting story. I don't want to dominate all the conversation, but I'm full of these things. My dad decided to run as a Democrat in a heavily populated district and all over the city, which was, as I said, Republican. And he filed to run against Mr. Dugan. He tells the story and would laugh about it up the Monday Club and whatnot when he thinks of this thing. And Dad would say that Papa, which was my grandfather, got mad with him and argued with him that he should get off the ticket and leave old man Dugan alone. And the reason Papa one in that was Old Man Dugan had a big grocery store right across from Secret Cleaners, that big white building there. And everybody over 3rd Street Bridge, Pastor, got ticking on the book from Old Man Dugan. And Papa did not want to get cut off. You need a bag of coal back in them days. You need something to eat because, you get a whole couple dollars or whatever. And Papa went up and told, Dad would tell the story how Papa went up to Old Man Dugan and told him that he has 9 head of children in that house, and he and my grandmother made 11. Only 1 vote out of that house was going against him, and that was Herman, because he won't get off the ticket, and all the rest of the family is going to vote for you, and they did that. So that was another very interesting story. But Dad ran in 1945, city council, his first run. He lost. He was later on very active with the Democrat Party, Republican Party, because he had jumped ship on either one of them if they weren't doing right. And we had the Representative Paul Livingston, who the cement bridge up from my house is named after.
Yes.
And Paul started getting older and whatnot, and Leo Marshall, who ran this town, Leo got Dad to drive him back and forth to Dover, made Dad an attaché, and put him on payroll down Dover. And as a result of that first year after Paul again got reelected, he died and left 1 year on his office, and they ran Dad in a 3-way race. It was Dutch Burton, it was Mr. Al Borley, the Republican, Dutch was the independent, Dad was the Democrat, and Dad run state representative. That was 1963. And then in 64, right across from the King Center, the building's tore down now, but that used to be our senator, Senator Raleigh. Okay, and he passed.
Oh, wow.
And once he passed, Reverend Moyer, Skinny Wilson, and some of the guys went to Leo and told him they were going to help the Republican take the seat over if Leo didn't put Herman Holloway on for senator. And Leo finally caved in, and Dad won the seat. That was 1964.
Oh, wow.
It was, what's interesting, in the primary for representative in 63, it was January 22nd or 23rd, I think it was the 22nd. It was a Saturday. And man, it rained furiously here. And that was the special election to fill Paul's seat. And it's the same day that Dad won that election that John Kennedy got assassinated in Texas in that motorcade.
Oh, wow.
January the 22nd.
Yeah, and now how many years did your father serve in the Senate?
He did a total, counting the 1 year in the House, I think it was about 33 years.
Oh, wow.
In the Delaware General Assembly. 1 year in the House and 32 years in the Senate.
Oh, wow, wow.
At that time, he held the highest seniority of any member ever serving in the Delaware legislature.
Is that what motivated you to run for public office as well?
No, to be honest with you, Dad scuffling around, he couldn't keep a job. Couldn't keep a job. He was hot-headed. He didn't have a car back in them days. I remember before they built the Walnut Street Bridge, everybody going in town or coming back, we had to walk in town over the 3rd Street Bridge here, and which is now the Winchester Bridge. And Dad would get up late a lot of times, and when it's cold and didn't have no car, every once in a while he'd have a nice little hoopty for a little while till it just cave in on him, and then he would be walking again. But some days he just didn't want to go to work, and tell my mother, tell him he ain't there and all that. Mom tell him, Herman, I ain't gonna lie for you, you get the phone. And they would call 4 or 5 times trying to make him come in, and Dad get the fussing and cussing, and he get fired. So I used to tell people he was meant to be a senator. That was his blessing and calling, because everywhere else he had worked, he had a lot of jobs all over the place. And Dad would get fired at every last one of them.
Oh, wow.
Just couldn't keep it. Just couldn't keep
the
it.
job.
My interest wasn't until 16, 17, 18 years old, me and a lot of my young buddies and whatnot, was when Leo Marshall, like I say, he ran the town with, he was like the boss out there in Chicago, can't think of, Mayor Daley.
Okay, Daley.
There's 5 or 6 guys across the country that they just had the whole town in their pocket, could take elections any way they want to go. And Leo was that powerful. And what got me interested, the first time that Leo tried to tell my dad how to vote on a very important piece of legislation, and he told him no, and they had words about it in the caucus. It was the first time that Leo primaried my father to try to knock him out. He primaried my dad 4 different times. And it was during that time that I got interested and wanted to help and see what I could do. And some of my buddies put this stuff out in the doors, do this, do that, election day, run errands, take your cars and pick up people and all that. That was the very first time that I got involved in an election and really didn't care nothing about it. I had a large janitorial service at that time, and that's where I made my living. And it was doing pretty good. When King got assassinated, they burned the store, Big A&P, out over in Riverside. So a buddy of mine, Scotty, got the store across from Eden Park. So now he's tied up, wearing me, him and Lenny Williams. Man, why don't you open up one over Riverside? Well, I did that and made plenty of money down there on Tides Lane, but drove me crazy because I wasn't used to being in no place 7 to 7 p.m. and all that with a little help. So my thing was 35, 40 years old, I was going to try to make me some money, retire, and move to Florida, and that was going to be it. But with the 4 different primaries against my dad to try to knock him off, each one became more interesting. And I started kind of taking over the committee, get my sister Marlene, my mother, and them involved. And next thing you know, I'm kind of running the whole doggone thing, handling the money, the big guys just putting money in to get Dad reelected. I was hiring the people and everything on the street workers and all that. We controlled the window inside with the people that control the voting and all that in there, check you out, see if you legit and all that. And I really learned a lot. I learned a lot. And Governor Sherman Tribbett, Russell Peterson was the governor. And Russ Peterson was the governor, Republican. Hal Haskell was, and we had Republicans in those offices for a long time. Hal Haskell, multi-millionaire, was the Republican mayor in the city. We had a Republican mayor for 44 years here. Hal won, Russ won, and they won, took the county over with Rita Justice. They own the First State Bowl now. But anyway, family very tightly entrenched in the Republican Party, plenty of money and all that. And as a result of all that happening, I was the only one when the chips were down, and I mean they were trying to offer plenty of money to get every black leader, and I was very vocal and out there at that time, to go with Hal Haskell and Russ Peterson, the Republicans. And me and a guy named Howard Brown were the only ones said no. Okay, we were going to be with Tom Maloney for mayor, and we were going to be with Sherman Tribbett for governor. And everybody just knew Russ was going to beat Tribbett. The accident in all of that was, number one, we won, took the city, county, and state, but the accident in it was Senator Cal Boggs, Republican, had been there for a long time, very powerful on the Hill, had announced that he was not going to run back for re-election. Nobody on the Democratic ticket wanted to run because they thought that Cal Boggs was going to run back, change his mind and all that. It was Leo Marshall sitting up in his office, my dad, me, a few others, talking about what we need to do. We were having a big rally for Democrats that Leo was having out on the Hill. And Leo suggested Joe Biden. Now, Joe had just got elected 2 years ago as county councilman. That's a 4-year term. And Leo was arguing, well, Joe's a fast talker, and whoever they put up, and he can get to try to out-talk him and do his thing. And if he loses, he still got 2 years on county council. After Cal Boggs realized that Joe was going to run and probably be respectfully attacked for his record and all that, he said, I'm not running back, period. And he stayed out. And that's how Joe lucked up and beat the Republican there.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
It's interesting, man.
Yeah.
I tell you.
It's one of these days we're going to have to just sit down and have a show just to talk about the politics of Delaware, the black politics, too.
Yes,
Because there's so much going on, and we have so much going on in this show that we just don't have the time. And I just feel so bad because this is the first time I got a chance to have you on Coffee with Curry.
Right.
And I didn't give you this whole hour, which I really need to have done. But I do want to say thank you. But I want the audience to know this, that, Herman Holloway Jr. has certainly served in many, many capacities. I met him over 17 years ago at Zion Fair when I first came to town. Have done a phenomenal job in doing community work for individuals, helping people who are in need and things of that. So he continued to carry his father's, his mother, his parents' legacy of helping the community, being a public servant. And I was very grateful that when I asked him to come, he didn't even hesitate, he would come. But I do promise you, we're going to have to bring you back when we have time. Because we got to really talk about so many things that is happening. And as we're highlighting African American Month, and we wanted to keep it local. This is a product of Southbridge. I always say Southbridge has one of the most rich and strong cultures, and this is an opportunity for you to see and live in color one individual. But I do want you to see something, a little bit about his father. So he did a nice presentation for us, and I just want you to watch this.
History of my dad, Senator Herman Holloway Sr., and as you've seen coming into my office, we have quite a few things out there that's going to be picked up and displayed at a later date down at Delaware State University in honor of Senator Holloway. I was blessed to be a state representative. We served together, House and Senate, and we were the ones that introduced the legislation that took Delaware State College, which was closed to many federal dollars and other opportunities, and created that situation, got it passed in the Delaware General Assembly, that now allows it to stand equal to University of Delaware or anywhere else as a university. So very proud of that. What I have out that in the other room that I want to show you and share is going back to Senator Holloway in 1945. His filing fee, a picture and a campaign card where he filed to run for city council over in the 3rd Street Bridge, Southbridge district, of which the city of Wilmington was heavily dominated in those days, heavily dominated as Republicans. Both black and white residents were heavily registered Republicans. And he filed against the Republican that was in office, was the elderly gentleman, Mr. Lee Dugan, and was the city councilman. And quite naturally, he got beat pretty severely. He lost that election in 1945. And from there, Senator Holloway continued just working in the community and organizing and pulling a lot of his friends together, and always enjoyed having what the old people called a little joint of somewhere that his buddies could gather, and that's where they would hang out and play cards and things, a little storefront, a building he would rent or whatever. And that was the hangout of a lot of the older men when they just wanted to take it easy on a Saturday or whatever. They would be down to Holloway's little hangout, his joint. And anyway, always arguing politics, trying to understand how to get involved. And he wanted to create, which he got busy. I've seen pamphlets on it and flyers where he has said for the longest of times as a young man that black people, Negroes, needed to organize their own political power. And he wanted to start an organization called the Negro Political Issue League. And he never really carried it through because of getting so busy and getting involved and whatnot and working for the family. But he ran for city council in 1945. He lost, of course, being the only Democrat evidently running against the Republican mob of the residents. And he didn't run anymore until 1963. He ran 1963 for state representative to fill the uninspired seat of the late Representative Paul Livingston, who had passed, but it was a year left on his term. And he happened to win it, and he became state senator of the 1st representative district. And in 1964, our senator passed in Southbridge, and who had that area. And his record and activity was so aggressive, and people liked the way he come in as a burst of fire. And he was colorblind. He would help anybody, it didn't matter, and help to fight legislation through as a House member. And these are during the days where there was no public accommodations, black and white water fountains and things. It was just a day that blacks just weren't allowed in a whole lot of areas, where he put in the legislation and fought for that in the House of Representatives and finished it up in the Senate. So he ran for the Senate in 1964, the next year after our senator passed. I was just a little boy, and he happened to have won the state Senate office. And Dad was in the Senate, as I remember, about 31 years or 32 years in the Senate and 1 year in the House of Representatives. So he served pretty well 33 years in the Delaware General Assembly. He served under about 8 or 9 different governors who could only serve 2 terms and then could not run anymore. So he was very proud of that. He's helped all the governors, Republican, Democrat, and whatnot. And he was the first African American that was appointed to the Joint Finance Committee, the money bills down Dover, because during them days they didn't play that. And he was in the Senate when they became majority of the Delaware Senate. He was asked to be, and he accepted to be, the majority whip in the Senate in Dover as well. I have out there, I have a scrapbook of a lot of articles and things that some people invited him and gave him a big retirement dinner and thought he is retiring. He changed his mind and he decided to run again, but I have that scrapbook with a lot of articles and things there, which I'll show you. I have his registration card where when he filed for city council, it was only $20 to be able to file to run for city council during those days. And I have the ballot when he ran for state representative. It was a 3-way race, and he happened to have won that race. There are about 35 or 40 certificates, awards, and things that people have honored him, groups, organizations have honored him, and as a result, I'm going to share that with you and show you some of the other things that are out there. So basically, Senator Holloway was born down in Georgia. He moved at a very young age with my grandfather and the family to South Wilmington, Southbridge, if you know the reference. And he lived in Southbridge pretty well all of his life. Up until the latter days, he moved to Washington Street. He lived at 636 Townsend Street. A very interesting history as well for Southbridge is as they continued to organize under Senator Holloway's leadership, we became the power base of the Democrat Party in Southbridge. And the ones that we supported were the ones that won the elections during those days that we took control of the Democrat Party. Over in the Southbridge. And Southbridge, just to help you to understand, 2 blocks down on B Street from Ezon Fair, we had the first elected state representative in Southbridge, same side as your church, Mr. Jim Winchester. He was the first black to be elected to the House of Representatives. Right around the street and up on the 600 block of Townsend Street, you had Senator Holloway as a state representative later on, but you had him elected there in Southbridge and holding that power in the at 636 Townsend Street, again in Southbridge. Later on, I decided to run, and you had me as state representative, Herman Holloway Jr., Southbridge again. And then you had, going up Townsend Street.
This is Black History Month. This is Black History Month. So is this. And this. This is Black History Month. This is Black History Month. So is this. And this.
And we're back. Well, as we are celebrating this Black History Month, I promised you all that I was going to keep everything local because I wanted you to see the greatness and the excellence that we have right among us, people who have changed the trajectory of the city of Wilmington and even the state of Delaware. Today, sitting with me is Mayor Sills, first in many different areas. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for inviting me. It's good to be with you.
Well, I appreciate you being here. When I spoke of the first, it shocked me to hear and read your resume as it relates to what you've done since leaving the great Morehouse College in Atlanta and coming here to Delaware. My records share with me that, one, you was the first Black, not only mayor for the city of Wilmington, but you were the first Black to be elected citywide for the city of Wilmington.
I was the first Black to be elected citywide as a city councilman at large.
Yes, sir.
First.
Yes.
And then later as mayor.
And I also heard that you were also a state representative.
Yes.
Wow. You just got busy in public service.
Looks that way.
Well, I've had some conversations with several people around town, people like Jay Street and others, who said that while you certainly come with high credentials, you certainly could have taught, could have went many places, but you have committed your life to support African Americans in any way you could. Is that a true assessment of you?
Well, I hope that's how people will see me and will judge my record. That certainly was one of my major goals in coming to Wilmington.
Yeah.
When leaving Morehouse, I was very much taught about the value of public service.
Yes.
And there was an expectation of all Morehouse graduates that they return to their local communities to help make them better.
Yes.
And to be involved in public service and leadership roles.
Yeah.
So I came to Wilmington with that background, with those expectations. And I hope I've had some success at that.
Well, let me assure you, you have. It's a joy to hear you say Morehouse, this is where what was expected of you. I'm a Lincoln grad, which, you know, we call y'all the imitation Lincoln folks, but it's the HBCU experience where we're taught to give back to the community that we served. You said you hoped that you were able to fulfill that. Mayor Sills, let me just assure you, I've only known of you. It's an honor to sit here with you today. But every person I talk with of any credibility share that your time in office, your time of public service have been that of giving back. You could have gone many other places. You could have done many other things. But you chose Wilmington, you chose to help your community, and all too often we wait until people are no longer with us to share their flowers and to share, you know, the great things that they've done. But today, I wanted the city on my show to see a man who have really not just been the first, but have really did some things in those positions to prove that you can be the first and represent your people to the highest degree. So first, I want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you for those comments.
Yeah. And also, I want to say, how are you able to navigate and make it and win? We you know, this was a Republican town at one point. Being the first Black mayor in Wilmington, which how did that happen?
Well, much of the credit for that can go to the citizens of Wilmington.
Okay.
I came here without knowing a single person in this city. I got off the train and went to the YMCA with my wife and one child at that point. They helped me to find a place to stay. And I have been fortunate in having gained the trust of a lot of people in this city who wanted me to serve in leadership roles and trusted that I would represent them well. And much of the credit for that, for the success that I've had, can be attributed to the support that I've gotten from a lot of people in the city. When I ran for city council at large in 1968,
Yeah, I was born.
I didn't really want to run. I didn't think enough people knew enough about me. But I said, well, I'll try. And as it turned out, I got overwhelming support. When I ran for mayor in 1992, I was reluctant to run. I didn't think enough people knew enough about me. I didn't think I had enough resources to win. But I won anyway.
Right.
Because of the tremendous support that I got from organized groups in the city of Wilmington, and especially the support that I got from black ministers in this city.
Okay.
Much of the success I had as mayor, especially during that first term in office, was because of the support I got from black ministers. So much of the success that I've had can be traced to the support I got from the black community in this city.
So would you say when we come together as a black community, we can do things?
Yes. There's a lot of evidence to support that premise.
Yeah.
When you look at the civil rights movement,
Okay.
much of the success we've had can be based on our organizational ability and the ability to take advantage of the support and organization that evolved from church and religious activities. So, yeah, I think the civil rights movement can be largely traced to the success we've had in organizing people to do things together, to achieve goals together. So yes, that's a premise that I would easily agree with.
Now, if you were to say, Mayor, that there was one area of where you were really discouraged while serving the people, you served in several capacities. Two we know of as first. Well, I'm going to talk about the University of Delaware in a minute, but for this question, if you were to say there was one area or one time when you was discouraged in general that can help some young person to understand you can overcome your discouragement, what would that be?
Well, I have been disappointed as a black elected official with the support or the minimal support that our city has gotten from Newcastle County as a governmental entity and has gotten from the Delaware General Assembly as a governmental entity. We have been able to through a lot of good organizational ability to amass some degree of political power in Wilmington. And you could say with some truth that we have gained significant political power in the city of Wilmington. Political power. We haven't had enough success in gaining political power from support in gaining support from the governmental entities outside of Wilmington.
Okay.
And much of the success that we need has to come from necessarily getting more support from the county government and the Delaware General Assembly.
I got you.
So we have focused heavily on amassing and gaining more support to have more political power in Wilmington. But we haven't done enough
Right.
to have more influence on political action and political affairs in the county government and the Delaware General Assembly.
Yeah, and Mary, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things I'm fighting for as a younger brother who's new to the city, 17 and a half years in now, is that we did elect a person who has really gotten some stuff done in the General Assembly, Darius Brown.
Yes.
I mean, that young brother has really gone in, to my understanding, it's $40 million has been put into a library that's going to happen right in the heart of the city. To my understanding, he just put in for a statue of you on that bridge they gave you over there, over down at the riverfront. He has done a whole lot on the General Assembly side to bring some strength to our community. If what you're really saying is kind of like connects to that, and I do give him credit for that, but a lot of times we're not paying attention to that. We just want to stick with the inner city things, or should I say the governmental structure of the city, as opposed to where the real power is with the state and with the county.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Darius Brown, because I agree with your overall assessment of his accomplishments in the city of Wilmington. He's done a lot. He was largely successful in getting, I still can't believe the General Assembly made a decision to allocate some close to $400,000 to build a statue for Jim Sills. I still can't believe that happened in Delaware. And it happened because of Darius Brown's initiative, his vision. He's been a godsend. Sometimes a lonely godsend without getting enough support from people here in the city. I'm glad that it looks like he's going to be able to keep his seat as a senator in the Delaware General Assembly. But he deserves a lot of credit for the many things that he has done. And I'm glad to see you and others giving him recognition for that.
Well, you can't, we didn't know which way our interview would go. I called you and asked you if you would come because I was really impressed with what you've done. But when you said what you said, it makes sense to me. All too often we put all our time in the city and we put no investment into the General Assembly, or should I say even the government of the state, as well as the county. And when we sent someone down there, we've sent many people to Dover. We've sent many people to Dover. But in a 2-year period, for him to have turned around and dumped back into the city of Wilmington the level of dollars, you cannot overlook that. And that's why a Jim Sills can sit back and have your head up high and say, my time has come and gone, but we're in good hands now. We're still in good hands. And I always attribute that to that HBCU experience. He too, he's from Delaware State, but he too is a part of that HBCU experience where you got to get back to your community. Don't carry the big stick and the loud bullhorn, but he certainly always tried to help the community. We have not received any dollars from Darius, but I watch what he's doing, and people are not paying attention. We fight each other, but we should not.
I have been heavily involved in the work of the African American Heritage Institute.
Yes.
From 2014 up to 2001. I was the president and able to get support from a number of entities, including from the Delaware General Assembly. Our organization has gotten $400,000 from the bond committee in the Delaware General Assembly, largely because of the efforts of Darius Brown. We were able to get the bond committee to allocate some $400,000 to help us to promote the black experience in Delaware. And again, that was because of Darius Brown. We've done a lot. We have been to Dover, not enough trips to Dover. We haven't done enough to establish a political experience in Delaware, in Dover rather, similar to the kind of experience we've created here in the city in working with City Council. We have gone to Dover on occasions, but we haven't done enough to hold the people in Dover, and especially those people who represent districts in Wilmington and outside of Wilmington. There are a number of elected officials who represent districts that overlap with Wilmington. We haven't done enough to hold those particular elected officials accountable for representing us.
Absolutely.
And making sure we get our fair share of public dollars from the Delaware General Assembly.
Absolutely.
We've got some money,
Right.
not enough in relation to the political contribution that we make, and especially to the Democratic Party. And that's, to a large extent, we are responsible for that deficiency, if you will.
Okay.
Because we haven't done enough to work at gaining and helping to help Wilmington citizens to recognize the value of having more influence in the Newcastle County Council and in the Delaware General Assembly.
Understood. Yes.
We make up 25% of close to 25% of the population. We don't come close to having anywhere near 25% of the elected officials in the Delaware General Assembly.
Right.
We've got to correct that problem
Right.
and get more people elected to positions as senators and as state representatives in the Delaware General Assembly.
Absolutely. Well, I know you didn't want to have a long interview, and I wanted to make sure that I respected your time. I do wanted to just grab real quickly also the University of Delaware.
Right.
African American going into a university that was not always as favorable to African Americans, but you were able to go in, be one of the head people for the Urban Studies Department. You were associate professor there. Great resume. How was your experience at the University of Delaware?
I've had a good experience at the University of Delaware. I was fortunate to have been associated with a college that has had leadership that recognize the value of having a relationship with the African American community in Wilmington. I was recruited by the dean at the College of Urban Affairs.
Okay.
And he recognized that in order for the college to be effective in doing research in Wilmington, having an experience in Wilmington, it was important, it was essential that they have some black person on the faculty.
Okay.
I was the first black faculty member.
Oh.
It was for some 20 years almost.
Okay.
And we haven't done enough in expanding those numbers. We have at this point about 4 to 5% of the faculty and staff at the University of Delaware who are black. 4 to 5%.
Yeah.
That ought to be a lot more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I was fortunate to have been associated with a college that recognized philosophically the value of having a constituency in Wilmington, and especially among the black community. That helped me to get the position as an associate professor there, including tenure. I was one of the first blacks to get tenure.
Yes.
So I've been fortunate to have had an experience at a particular college. That's not that feeling, that philosophy has not been pervasive among the other colleges at the university.
Right.
And I feel ashamed to say that. Yeah. I was there for 26 years,
right,
including 8 years that I got a leave of absence to go be mayor for 8 years.
Okay.
But I was there for 26 years, technically, as a faculty member.
Okay.
And I'm bothered at the fact that we still have only about 4 to 5% of the faculty that's black.
Yeah.
We've got to change that.
Yeah. And I'm sure you don't share that by yourself, but it was just, you gave me a new piece of information I didn't know, but you being one of the first, you was associate professor with tenure. That means something for those in the academic world. Those who are not in the academic world, they may not understand that. But to give an African American in a University of Delaware tenure is huge.
Yeah.
And even though you may, right now we may have 5% of African Americans there, it would be mesmerizing to know how many are tenured. Because even with your 5%, you're not going to find 5% of their faculty black who are tenured. So you have really accomplished a whole lot in your life. Yeah. And God has put you in some really strong places, and I'm very grateful that I got a chance to sit down with you today, so that the community who watch our show will be able to see Jim Sills. I've heard your name. People have given you accolades for what you've done, helping the community. As a matter of fact, if you talk to Jay Street, I mean, he often talks about how the other groups came up against you when you were trying to do what is right. But like you said, it was the African Americans sticking together. It's why you were able to land the position in a city that really wasn't friendly to African Americans. So,
Jay Street is a great friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he was one of my students at the university.
He told me.
And I watch him in amazement at his tenure as a county councilman. He's been able to do some great things. Mm-hmm. Sometimes not having sufficient support from the community at large. But I'm glad to see him still plugging along and continuing to do things that benefit the black community.
Yeah.
But again, I think I would repeat once more that I'm lucky that I came to Wilmington. I was born in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, wow, it's my father lived. Okay.
It's a city about the same size as Wilmington, about 85,000 or so. And when I came out of graduate school at Atlanta University, which is also in Wilmington, I wanted to come to a city about the size of Wilmington. I wanted to come to a city where I felt people would get to know me relatively soon, and where I'd have an opportunity to interact with people at the neighborhood level. And I've had a good experience because I wanted, we bought a house on the east side of town. I have 3 kids. All 3 of them were raised on the east side of town.
Okay.
And I feel fortunate to have come to Wilmington and been able to gain the trust and confidence of people in various leadership roles.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you said you have 3 children. How are they doing?
They're doing well. I have a son, my oldest son, who was raised on the east side, is now president and CEO of a bank in Durham, North Carolina.
All right.
He was, before he became president of the bank in Durham, North Carolina, he was secretary of the state's Department of Information and Technology for 8 years.
Okay.
And he's done well.
Good.
I have a daughter who works for a national nonprofit that's aligned with the Apple Corporation.
Oh.
She's doing well. And my son, Mark, I don't know whether you know Mark, he's still in the city.
Okay.
He has a profit-making youth development organization. And he organizes basketball tournaments in cities within this region.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And groups pay to join or to be a part of his weekend tournaments in cities within the Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland region. And he's been able to make a good living doing that, and has done a lot for young people in this city. So, yeah, I have 3 kids. They're all doing well, and I feel at some point I hope you can meet all of them.
Yes, well, we're going to make it our business. And you're a great man. I want you to live as long as you want to and don't want a day that you live, because I have had an opportunity to research you. The only thing I didn't like about you was that you are a Kappa. And I'm a Q, so I said I'll throw that in at the end. But for real, I'm very grateful for what you've done. Again, I'm not from here. I'm from Philadelphia. I came to Delaware State University to be the dean of students there, and I then became the pastor of Zion Fair here in Wilmington. And I love the city. I love what the city represents. I love it when we are together. Right now, we're going through a very horrible moment with the crime in the city. We're going to come together. It's going to get better. But the city and those who watch us need to see what it looks like to be the first and made a difference in the positions that the community trusted you in. Yeah. And I appreciate you for that. So Mayor Sills, on behalf of all of the Wilmingtonians and all of those who have certainly given me great information on you, and Darius Brown was one of those individuals who sat down with me and talked to me about you, as well as many others. Jay Street, you said he was one of your students, but he told me he worked for you at one point as well, and you had to fire him, I think it was, but he loved you more. And there was other people I had an opportunity to talk with, but what I'm grateful for most of all is that you did not forget from which you've come. And that's what matters. As we celebrate Black History Month, I just want to say to all of you, especially those of you who God has blessed and privileged to be able to have and do well. Brother has, a degree from Morehouse College, which is considered to be one of our elite HBCUs, historically Black colleges. And yet he came and worked and served. And that's what it's all about. That's how we make it. So again, Mayor, is there anything else you would like to share before we call this a close for today?
I want to congratulate you on this church. This is a beautiful, beautiful building. Beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful churches in our city.
Oh.
You've been able to accomplish a lot. How long have you been here? What, 4 or 5 years?
No, I've been the pastor of this church I'm in my 18th year, but I've been over this side of town about 10 years. We built this over here last 10 years. Yeah.
Well, you're doing great work. It's obvious when you look at this building and the many things you're doing in the larger community. Thank you for having me.
Well,
It's been a good experience, and this is my second time here.
Okay.
And I don't think I've been to this part of the building.
Okay.
I've been to your
sanctuary,
to your major part, where you have your services. But I'll be back.
I'm going to hold you to that if I got to send somebody for you. And we appreciate, because you're only up the street. You're not too far away. So we certainly appreciate everything that you've done. And I wish we had more time, but it won't be long before we get an opportunity to come back together and discuss various things. But thank you, Mayor, for being with me today. I hope and trust you really enjoyed the show today. It was really humbling for me to sit and talk with Herman Holloway as well as with Mayor Sills. This has been a great day for me. For those of you young people who are watching, please note that we come from greatness. We come from people who have struggled to get to where they are, who have led the way, led the fight, made sure we have something that we can hold on to. It becomes our job to now move ourselves forward. We talked with Mayor Sills today, and a man from Morehouse College. Then he went on and he went to Atlanta. I forgot exactly, I think it was Clark, Atlanta, but he went on to get his master's degree. But what impressed me that I found out while we were talking is that he was a tenured professor at the University of Delaware and one of the first, if not the first, Black professor there at the University of Delaware. For those of you who don't understand, the state of Delaware has not always been kind to Black people. The University of Delaware has not always been kind to Black people. But for him to have landed such a position, but I hope you noticed what he said. He said when he came to Wilmington, he, his wife, and his one child, he found friends, he found people who had trust in him, who grew relationships with him. That matters. Then if we jump over to Herman Holloway, it's like he's a South Bridging, and he was here. His father and the 9 children, they were there in the struggle. We talked about many different things, and this is what I'm trying to do. Instead of us talking about all the national heroes, we gave you an opportunity for the month of February to see the local. And this is not the end. We have so many more. We talked about various people, but listen, your name has to be listed among them. Make sure you're giving back to the community that you live in. Make sure you're making a difference in the world that you're in. As we close out this Black History Month, please remember, our history cannot be told in one month. Let's live out the history, 365 days of the year. Let's talk to each other. Let's work together. Let's bridge the gaps of dysfunction, so that we can become a functioning community as they were. They had to elect a Herman Holloway, a Black man. They had to elect a Mayor Jim Sills. That's difficult in a community that is not friendly to our people. But they did it because they came together. I hope you enjoyed the show today. And until the next time we get together, don't forget we have 2 services every Sunday. The first one starts at 9 a.m. The other one is at 11:30. We also have our 9 a.m. Facebook Live. Please join us for worship. We have our prayer call, which is every Sunday and Wednesday at 5 a.m. in the morning. And you may say, Pastor, nobody gets up that early. We have 200 to 300 people on their prayer call. You need to be a part of that. Bible study is every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And I thank you for the time that we shared together today. Until the next time, God bless.